Good evening, my grim fellows. Tonight's theme is pets, as you can tell by the thumbnail. Our loyal companions, our furry little therapists, our little bundles of unconditional love, till they're not. You see, behind every wagging tail or innocent purr is a set of eyes that have watched you a little too long while you sleep, and a set of teeth that at any moment could forget the difference between kibble and you. Tonight, we're diving into three tales that aren't so much about man's best friend as they are about man's worst nightmare. So, fluff up the cat bed, shake the treat jar, and don't be alarmed if the goldfish looks like it's plotting. These stories may just prove that sometimes it's the pets that own us. Do you ever look at your furry little friend and wonder what they're thinking? What if you actually got an answer to, "What you doing?" Our first story is called Now My Cat is Talking. A week after I got back from my trip to Egypt, my cat Richard started talking to me. "Hello, Ivan," he said after I walked into the apartment after work. "Hi, Richard," I said. Then I realized what had just happened, though. I had dropped my laptop to the floor. "Did you just talk?" "I did." "How is that possible?" "I'm not sure." Richard and I sat on the couch and tried to figure out what had happened. I'd recently returned from a work trip to Cairo. While walking through the Khan el-Khalili Bazaar, a wooden statue caught my attention. The statue was a foot tall and depicted a mummified man standing with his arms crossed over his chest. The wood felt unexpectedly heavy in my hands, almost warm despite the cool air. The detail in the man's face was incredible. I could even see the small wrinkles around his eyes. It almost looked real. I asked the vendor how much the statue cost. I'd worried he'd say hundreds, but when he told me he only wanted 20 US dollars, I bought the statue and took it home as a souvenir. I put it on my TV stand, next to my TV. "I've felt strange ever since you brought the statue home," Richard said. "Do you think it has something to do with why you can talk now?" "I've always had thoughts, but when you brought this statue home, I started thinking in English. I've never thought in English before. I've never wanted to speak, either, but now I do." The person who sold me the statue said it was an Ashtabi statue. He said they're usually found in tombs, but this statue had actually been carved by a local. It was art, not a piece of history. I picked up the statue and looked at it more closely. The wood felt oily. I noticed tiny cracks running the wood, too, like veins, and layers of light and dark red coloring that shifted in the light. Maybe the statue was much older than I had thought it was. It took a while for me to get used to Richard being able to talk, but once I got over the shock of it, I enjoyed our conversations. I didn't have any friends. Usually after work, I just go home and play video games or watch TV. I still did that, but now I had someone else to talk to. Richard would ask me all kinds of questions about the world, and I'd do my best to answer him. "Why do dogs hate us so much?" "I don't know," I said. "I've never really thought about it. I guess they just do." "And if I eat pizza, I'll get sick?" "Your stomach wasn't made for it. Cats need to eat raw meat." At first, Richard seemed happy to spend time with me too. As the weeks went on, though, he became irritated by my behavior, and he started criticizing me. "Why don't we go out for a walk?" he asked. "I'm tired. I don't feel like walking." "Every day you come home and you sit on the couch. You never do anything. You're so lazy." Another time, I ordered pizza 2 nights in a row, and Richard gave me a look of pure disgust. "How can you eat like this?" he asked. "I don't feel like cooking." "Then order a salad. Order anything healthy for once." I began to resent Richard. I went out of my way to avoid him. Instead of coming home after work, I took his advice and started going to the gym. I lost nearly 20 pounds. Richard started going out more too. Each morning before I left for work, he'd ask me to open the window. He'd spend the day exploring Chicago, not coming home until much later that night. Sometimes not until the next day. What are you doing? I asked him. Learning about the world, he said. The way he was acting made me uncomfortable. I don't know exactly what it was, if it was how he talked or how he reacted to me. He didn't just seem resentful anymore. He seemed hateful. He seemed like he wanted to hurt me and hurt other people in the world too. It was like he felt better than all of us, and the rest of us needed to be brought up to his standards. In my free time, I started to research the Ashtabby statues. I learned that the Ashtabby were magical servant statues buried with the dead. They awaken in the afterlife and perform work on behalf of the deceased, stepping in like their clone. I tried talking to Richard about what the statue might be doing to him, but he wouldn't listen to me. He just mocked me. So you think this statue has somehow possessed me? He asked. Cats just don't start talking. Something's going on. Did you ever think maybe I'm just smarter than other cats? You're talking, Richard. You're reading Plato and Aristotle and Livy's History of Rome. That's not normal. I decided to try an experiment. One night, while Richard was gone, I took the statue down to my car. When Richard came home later that night, he was furious. He immediately woke me up, jumping on my bed and hissing in my face. Where is it? He yelled. I threw it out. Then go get it. Or what? I'll make you regret it. He never threatened me before. I'd believe his threat too. He'd do whatever he could to hurt me. I got the statue from my car and put it back beside my TV again. From then on, though, I kept my distance from Richard. Truthfully, I was scared of him. I had no idea what he was capable of. The people in this city are so boring, he told me. Every day, I've been watching them do the same things, again and again. No ambition, no dreams, nothing. Just millions of people wasting away, wasting their lives. I'd finally had enough of him. And what are you doing with your life? I asked. If ambition is so important to you, maybe you should go live somewhere else. Are you kicking me out? I think we'd both be happier if you didn't live together anymore. Richard agreed. I offered to help him move. Wherever he wanted to go, I'd find a way to get him there. He thanked me, but then he asked me for some time to think about what he wanted to do next. It was the same night the nightmare started. I dreamt I was lying in my bed when two rotten arms reached up through my bed sheets and dragged me downward, through the bed and into an ocean of black water. I flailed my limbs, struggling to breathe, as I sank deeper and deeper. I sensed other things around me, watching me. Not people, something else. Spirits, demons. Their yellow eyes lit up the darkness. I woke in my bed, covered in cold sweat, my heart beating painfully fast. Richard sat at the edge of my bed, watching me with the same yellow eyes. What are you doing here? I asked him. I heard you scream. I came to make sure you were okay. I'm fine. I wasn't fine, though. I was even more frightened than I was before. I was desperate for help, too. What if whatever had taken control of Richard's mind really wanted control of me? During my research into the Ashtabby statue, I came across the profile of a professor at the University of Chicago, Dr. Chen, an expert in Egyptology. I reached out to her by email, explaining what happened and attaching a video of Richard talking to me. Dr. Chen agreed to meet me for coffee on the university campus. She arrived at the cafe with her hair tied in a ponytail, her eyes very visibly strained, and her hands smeared with blue ink. You swear that video is real? She asked. It isn't AI Photoshop or something like that? It's 100% real. My cat can talk. He's been talking to me ever since I brought that statue home. His behavior has changed too. At first he was kind of friendly. Now, though, he acts like he wants me dead. If what you say is true, I believe the Ashtabby statue you brought home from Egypt had a spirit trapped inside of it. A spirit? She nodded. Wealthy people were buried with hundreds of these statues. The dead person's spirit was supposed to bring these statues to life and perform work on their behalf. Maybe that's what happened. Whoever was buried with that statue, their soul has awakened it to accomplish something here. What would the spirit want? Power and wealth, possibly? Religious favor? Legacy and memory? She sipped her coffee and thought for a moment. If the statue has caused this problem, though, maybe destroying the statue would fix it. How do I destroy it? That's not really my area of expertise, but if I were you, I would burn it. Don't put out the fire until every bit of the statue has turned to ash. And you're sure that would help? No, but I don't know what else you can do. On my way home from the university, I stopped at the store and bought an axe, a lighter, and some lighter fluid. I hid everything in the trunk of the car so Richard wouldn't see it. At home, Richard sat in the windowsill in the living room, flicking his tail. He seemed to know something was wrong. Why didn't you go to work today? He asked. I wasn't feeling well. Then why didn't you stay home? I had a few errands to run. It was just a fever. I tried walking to my room, but Richard jumped in front of me. You smell different. Someone's perfume. Who were you talking to? Nobody. Just a few cashiers. Maybe it's one of their perfumes you're smelling. Maybe. I walked around him, sat on my bed, and turned on my bedroom TV. Every now and then, I'd look at the door. I could see Richard's paws moving as he paced back and forth. Are you staying home tonight too? I asked him. It's a little cold tonight. Have you thought any more about where you'd like to live next? I have a few ideas. I'll let you know soon. Later, I opened my door a crack. I didn't see him. I was hoping he was sleeping. I tiptoed towards the TV and picked up the Ashtabi statue. Richard lunged at me, hissing, Don't you dare touch it! His claws dug into my face, ripping the skin. I grabbed onto him and threw him onto the couch. I picked up the statue and ran out of my apartment, slamming the door behind me. You'll regret this, he screamed. I ran downstairs and got in my car. I could feel the blood dripping down my cheeks. Thank God he hadn't clawed my eyes. Where can I burn this statue? I wondered. There's no going back now. I drove around aimlessly for an hour, but then I headed towards Chicago's South Side and parked in an alleyway next to an empty, graffiti-covered warehouse. I looked around and didn't see anyone else. I got out of the car and opened the trunk. In the distance, someone screamed, and I spun around. I was still alone, though. Nothing but buildings and shadows, the smoke from the smokestacks twisting through the sky. I took out the axe and lighter fluid. I swung the axe down on the statue, cutting it in half. Lightning flashed across the sky. In the distance, police sirens wailed. I covered the two broken pieces of the statue with lighter fluid and set them on fire. As soon as the flames lit up, the silence was ripped apart by a terrible scream. Rain began pouring from the sky. My hands shook as I covered the flames with my jacket, protecting the flames until they'd grown large enough that the rain could no longer stop the statue from burning. I watched as the wood turned to ash, and then as the wind blew the ashes away. That awful statue was gone forever. Please be over, I hoped. Please let Richard be okay. The rain began falling harder. I got back in my car and drove back home with my windshield wipers squeaking loudly against the glass. Inside my apartment, all the lights were off. I turned the lights on. In front of the TV, blood was splattered on the carpet from where Richard had cut me. Finally, I saw him. He jumped off the couch and meowed. Richard? I asked. Are you okay? He meowed again. I got on my knees. He walked towards me, and I pet his head. Do you understand what I'm saying? He sat, purring. I looked at his eyes. His eyes looked less yellow, too. I love you, Richard, I said. He walked to his water bowl and licked his water. It was finally over. I sat on the couch and turned on the TV. Richard jumped on my lap, and I started petting him again while he purred. But then, suddenly, icy fingers grabbed onto my shoulders. Before I could turn to see who it was, I was violently dragged backwards over the couch, my shins slamming into the coffee table. I clawed at the carpet as I was pulled across the floor into the bedroom. Help! I screamed. The bedroom door slammed shut behind me. In the darkness, whatever had grabbed me threw me onto the bed. Two yellow eyes appeared in front of my face. "You pathetic little man," it hissed. It pressed its cold hands into my chest. My heart froze. The bed turned to water, and then I began to fall through that same cold, black water again. "Let go of me!" I yelled, and I tried to fight my way back through to the surface before I drowned. Then I heard Richard scratching at the door, trying to get in. The sound cut through the nightmare. Suddenly I could feel my bed beneath me again. I was gasping, soaked in sweat, but breathing air instead of that horrible water. I went to the door and opened it. Richard looked up at me and meowed. The apartment lights began to flicker. I picked up Richard and carried him downstairs to my car. I drove around in circles the rest of the night, afraid to go back home. "Have you been back to the apartment?" Dr. Chen asked me. "Richard and I stayed in a hotel for the next week," I said, "but then I started to run out of money, so we went home. Our first night there after what happened was a little frightening, but the apartment seems normal now." "You haven't noticed anything strange?" "Every now and then when I'm sleeping, I'll wake up to a loud noise, but I think it's just my imagination. Honestly, I'm starting to wonder if I imagined this whole thing." "But you have the videos." "Those have changed too. Look at this." I take out my phone and play one of the videos for her. Richard looks at the camera and meows. "You heard him talking before, right?" "I did." "Well, whatever proof I had is gone." "And Richard hasn't talked since you destroyed the statue?" "He hasn't said a word." "Then destroying the statue must have worked." After saying goodbye to Dr. Chen, I drove home and ordered a pizza for dinner. Richard and I sat together on the couch, watching TV. He looked up at me, and I pet his head. I'm happy things are back to normal now. But at night, while Richard sits at the edge of my bed, I can't help but wonder what he's thinking about, and how much of who he was before is still him. Sometimes I wish I could get rid of him, but he's my cat. He's been my cat for 7 years. I just can't abandon him. I couldn't live with myself. Ever have an animal follow you home? Did the "Mom, can I keep it?" question actually work for you? Not sure that you're going to want this next story to follow you home. This one's called Billy's Best Friend. Billy had a secret. It was a special thing. His very own, one of a kind, super secret best friend. After school, he hopped on his bike and cruised the old back roads around town, picking up dinner for his friend. Possums, squirrels, whatever little critters were left squished on the road. With his backpack full of dead things, Billy pedaled away, excited to see Buddy. Billy thought the old farm must have been abandoned for a long time. At least, long enough for everybody to forget about what lived in the shed. "Hey, Buddy," Billy called as he opened the door. "Sorry I'm late. It took a while to find your dinner." Buddy rose, the chain around his neck rattling. Tattered clothes barely covered his pallid skin. His milky eyes searched blindly as he shambled towards the noise. The stench of death emanated from his rotting body. Billy retrieved a dead squirrel from his backpack and tossed it at Buddy's feet. His friend pounced instantly, falling on the carcass and tearing into it with his teeth. "Had a bad day," Billy sighed, sitting on a dusty workbench. "I think I flunked a test, and Mitchell was picking on me again. He's just such a dick, you know?" Buddy growled, mouth full of squirrel organs. "I knew you'd understand," Billy said, feet swinging. After second period, he poured water on my pants. "Like right here," Billy gestured with his hands. "It looked like I peed myself. I tried to dry it off, but it didn't help. The rest of the day, everybody called me Billy Pee Pants. I tried to tell them what happened, but they didn't care. Nobody cared." Buddy picked the last scraps of meat off the bones and groaned loudly. "I know you care, Buddy," Billy said, tossing another dead squirrel on the ground. "Billy and Buddy, best friends. I bet Mitchell wouldn't mess with me if he knew I had such a cool friend. You'd stick up for me, wouldn't you?" Buddy bit down, crushing the squirrel's head between his teeth. "Yeah, I'd love to see the look on his face. You'd give him a good scare. Maybe he'd pee his pants for real." Billy said, fantasizing. But I can't take you to school. You're too stinky, and the teachers would think you're gross. No offense. Buddy groaned, chewing on the squirrel's tail. I know, Billy exclaimed. I can trick him, make something up, and get him to come out here. I'll tell him I found some dirty magazines or something. I'll lock him in here with you, and you can scare him. It's perfect. He won't mess with me again after that. Buddy growled, gore covering his cadaverous face. Billy smiled. I love you, Buddy. Here's a special treat. Billy threw a flattened possum to his friend and watched him feast. Tomorrow, Mitchell is going to get what's coming to him. I'm not much of a dog person, so a loose dog in the neighborhood really makes me nervous. You just never know how somebody's pet will react. Imagine your surprise to this last pet. Our final story is called Cocaine T-Rex. Oh yeah. Skull sat there, teeth bared. I felt uneasy, staring at the main one, the skull of the Tyrannosaurus Rex, king of the monsters. The light shone down onto it, an array, while darkness draped a veil of black all around the gleaming ivory. Darkness and dinosaurs. I shivered in dread. I've always had a bad feeling about dinosaurs, like they are real, in my life. I know they are. I've always known. I thought the one in the movies was real when I was a kid. Strange, when I saw one for real, it was just an animal. It didn't look real somehow, staring at the real thing. I was taken, shoved into the van with 2 other children on the field trip. They'd stolen 3 of us, and I was the only one who didn't get eaten. I wriggled, tied, under the heavy bar fence. The dinosaur wasn't trying to get through. I doubt the bison fence would withstand the rage of the monster if it wanted out of its enclosure. They tried to catch me, the weirdos in the dinosaur masks. Some kind of weird cult, led by a guy who looked almost exactly like a young Jared Leto. He wasn't in a mask and ordered them to catch me. I ran as fast as I could and escaped into the forest. I wandered out into the highway, where I was picked up by the state patrol after I stood there trying to hitchhike. I was sitting in the back of their vehicle, locked in, and witnessed what happened next. I had already had a harrowing and frightening experience, but I hadn't seen anything yet. I didn't actually see my classmates get eaten, or at least I don't remember seeing it happen. Somehow, I suspect the memory is buried in my mind, and I cannot remember seeing it happen. I just know they were devoured by the monster, and then I panicked and also escaped. The 2 state patrol saw 2 of my pursuers, and one of them got out and gave chase to them on foot, back to their compound. When they were on the road leading in, the driver picked up the sweaty patrol woman who came out of the bushes on the side of the road waving us down. We then proceeded to the entrance of the dinosaur cult's compound, owned by some rich guy, who denied them access without a warrant. We sat there for 3 hours while more police showed up and there was a warrant for immediate search of the premises for the missing children and the suspected kidnappers. They found them, but the dinosaur cage seemed empty, and the rest of the cultists were gone, somehow. The kidnappers were arrested, their van impounded as evidence. It was then discovered that there was a back road leading out of the forestry road, also known as Smuggler's Highway. We followed it along the bumpy route until we found where a collision between a 4-wheeled vehicle and the special cage truck for the dinosaur had occurred. There was a frightening evidence of the T-Rex everywhere. Tracks and destruction. There was also blood, but what was scary was that we found no bodies. Everyone was missing. I thought, well, at least it's eaten. But then we found that the smugglers were bringing a ton of cocaine on their vehicle. The state patrol looked worried, seeing that a large animal had eaten a ton of cocaine. It's like in that movie, Cocaine Shark, one of them said. You mean Cocaine Bear? I think it was a remake, the other said. But before they could discuss movies, the real-life T-Rex silently, without trembling the ground, moved in, leaned over, and ate one of them. Its eyes were all dilated and crazed-looking. I was screaming in absolute dread and terror. The other state patrol, She got out of there and hid, while the high T-Rex searched for her in futility. Every time it tried to sniff her out, it sneezed instead. Then it heard me screaming and took note. The smile on its face I do not care for. It still haunts my nightmares. I was staring through the flimsy bullet glass, which wouldn't have stopped that thing, the reptilian dragon beast. It wasn't exactly like a T-Rex should look or act, and not just because it was stoned, but because it was genetically mutated, crossed with something else, hatched from something else's egg. It vaguely looked like a crocodile, or perhaps a Fallout Deathclaw, or something in between. Its arms weren't as T-Rex-like as they should be, and its face was too broad, making its grin unbearable. I was shrieking in insane hysterics of panic. Then the State Patrol started firing the assault rifle she had found near where someone was plucked from the ground and eaten in basically one vicious gulp. To that monster, a person was like a very large bite of steak, and it had to be full, I thought, but then again, it was crazed from its overdose. The assault rifle was emptied, and did little more than make the monster angry. I'd always wondered what a gun would do to a dinosaur, since they never shoot any dinosaurs in the movies, making me wonder if dinosaurs all have some kind of plot armor that make the use of guns impossible. My throat hurt, and my eyes were blurred with tears as the tail struck the car and moved it across the road. The jolt stunned me, so that I was looking all cross-eyed at the goat State Patrol woman who had found a rocket launcher in the smuggler's vehicle. She let the T-Rex have an anti-tank slug through one eye, which detonated on the inside of its skull and disintegrated its entire head. The poor animal never even knew what happened. One minute it was eating a psychedelic buffet of screaming cheeseburgers, and the next, darkness. Got a little extinction on your face, she coughed out a one-liner, glancing around with the feral eyes of cooling adrenaline. She dropped the bazooka and got in the patrol vehicle. Shakily, she backed up and we drove away, down the forestry road. I'm very glad to be alive and enjoying life. Glad I'm not extinct. And that's the end of tonight's little menagerie. Cats that talk, zombies that follow you home, and a pet that can only be found in your nightmares. Funny thing about pets, we invite them in, we feed them, and we hope that they don't eat us first. So tonight, give your cat an extra treat. Pay attention to your neighbors, and if something dead starts scratching at your door, maybe pretend like you're not home. After all, some pets don't need rescuing. They're here to rescue you, from the inside out. As usual, like, comment, subscribe, and share this with someone that you'd haunt. This has been Awfully Grim.